Stuck describes something that is fixed or frozen in place. So if your foot gets stuck in the mud, you just can't pull it out. You can get a jar with a stuck lid, or your car can be stuck in traffic. And either way, it just means you ain't going nowhere. I love that word, automatopoeia stuck. But if you're feeling it, there's not much to love about it. When a woman asks me, how did I get stuck in this mediocre or failing marriage? I know she's feeling trapped, and she's looking to me as her marriage mentor to help her get out of that trap, to get her marriage going and growing again. And I have a team of women, wonderful women, that help me to do just that. Women with muscle, because they not only know the answers, they have lived the question. And three of them, Lucretia, Rosemary, and Deb, are about to share their real life experience with you. So if you want to get unstuck, you better stick around.
You and me, we could be on top of the world.
How come I'm in this situation I'm in? Why isn't my marriage really what I want it to be or where I want it to be? Tell me why, and then tell me what to do. All talked about this, and we've come up with a number of commonalities that we've seen in the hundreds of women that we work with. Here are some of the components that we've identified. A lack of a why or a purpose, lack of context for the past and present, lack of forward vision, lack of accountability, lack of positive influences and influencers, lack of understanding of the differences between men and women, lack of know-how and skill, lack of personal care and development, lack of urgency. I'm going to put a little fire in us today. I want to create a sense of urgency, or maybe a better way to put it is a sense of hope and joy. Like, oh, this is something I can actually have some influence or control over my marriage, my relationship. We can make change in our hearts and in our husband's heart, in our relationship, much faster than we think we can if we can overcome some of these other lack ofs. Something I have found absolutely foundational in the lives of all the women I've worked with is this lack of why. They don't even know, most of us do not even know, I certainly didn't when I started out, why I even wanted to be married. Why did I get married in the first place? And that lack of purpose and underpinning a real rationale for what I was doing left me wide open to just sort of grabbing at straws. Today I feel like I want this or I need that, instead of doing things intentionally, purposefully, sort of building, I call it a castle, not just a little cottage. I want a castle, right? So brick by brick by brick, that takes a great deal of intention. It also takes putting our lives into sort of context. We all have a past. We all got a lot of baggage. We all got a lot of water under the bridge, right? How does that, fit into where I am today? And then how do I know where I'm going? So what I say to my students is, once you really become that student of relationships and a student of yourself, because that's what comes first, and you're in the perfect place, I call it, because you can look backward and you can see what didn't work and what did work, And you can see why. You understand better why you did the things you did. You can understand why he did the things he did. And now so here you are in your perfect place, but you can also now know how to move forward. You know how to avoid the things you didn't like back here. And you know how to implement the things that will take you where you want to go. So wherever you are, in the moment you decide to become a student of relationships, particularly your marriage, that moment when it really sinks in and you're like, yes, I'm going to do this, got that urgency, got that sense of investment and commitment, you are in the perfect place. So of our list, that's what jumps out at me more than any other, is the idea of, why am I stuck? Because you have a lack of why. You have a lack of purpose. You have a lack of context, your past, your present, and your future. Looking at that same list, what jumped out at you? Rosemary, what jumped out at you?
Sometimes we think that it's the man's job to make us happy. And when I discovered in my WifeSavers education that it was not my husband's job to make me happy, I found that was mind-blowing. Of course he's supposed to make me happy. Well, if he's not making me happy, then my marriage must not be successful. And I can't look elsewhere for happiness because that's being, betraying him somehow. And so when I learned in WifeSavers that actually I need to take responsibility for my own personal happiness, and it's okay to delight my heart and to do the things that will bring me joy, and then just fill myself up and let him top me off, that was just, I don't know, it just blew my mind. It was amazing. And then I was able to turn and be more loving to him. And he benefited from the fact that I had delighted myself and taken a little time for myself. These kind of things bring us joy, whether he changes or not.
It's so foundational. And it's fascinating to me, not surprising anymore, but fascinating how often we have to remind our students of this really simple, basic, like boing idea. And that involves personal development, not just self-care, but growing, learning, developing, absolutely key. Deb, what about you? What on that list jumped out at you?
Well, I remember I've known you for a while, since I was a teenager. And one thing that I was doing kind of unconsciously was really looking for adults and families and how they worked and how marriages worked that were really actually working. And that was really such a blessing. And I've had to learn a lot of those other details of really going from that unconscious to proactive approach and seeking out mentors and people that could help me in that way, but also really being aware of the other influences in my life through books and music and movies and all of those things. I realized early on in my marriage, thankfully, that there's a really big difference depending on what you're reading and what you're inputting into yourself, what you're able to give back in your marriage, and the kinds of ways that you think about yourself, the way you think about your husband, the way you think about marriage in general. All of those things, all of that entertainment can really be helpful in a marriage, and it can be really destructive as well if you're not being aware of some of the this is not really a good idea.
I know that's why a lot of our students work with us, is because they have a lack otherwise in their environment, in their other relationships. They have a lack of examples, let alone influencers, because you can have bad examples, right? How many women come to us that say, my mother's been divorced multiple times. All my aunts have been divorced multiple times. They literally have no one else in their life saying, hey, this is possible and you can do it. And we'll show you. We'll show you through our own lives. So yes. And your point about entertainments, Rosemary, Lucretia, you agree? I know you do. We love doing our best imagination. We call it workshops with our students, where we try to introduce them and share together all kinds of wonderful things from books and movies and poetry and writing and art and everything, theater, you name it. And we all feel so good. We just leave on a high. So
Yes, a student just told me the other day in a live event how much she loved the positivity of our live events. And that's why she comes, because we don't sit around and beat up on our husbands. We sit down and we find solutions and we encourage, and she leaves with such an uplift and a sense of positivity.
yeah, I know that surprises a lot of women. They're not used to a group of women going that direction, but we really do have that culture. I'm so grateful for that. And I too am uplifted by it. There's no question.
Being responsible for delighting your own heart and how empowering that can be.
Yes, empowering, as long as we balance it with the needs of our family, because there's joy in both. There can be. If we do this right, we bring joy to our own heart by taking care of ourselves and our personal growth and development. But if we're just as concerned about that opportunity for our family and in facilitating their happiness, we're not responsible for their happiness, but we want to facilitate their dreams and their growth. That's part of what we do because we're a family, right? But finding that balance is tricky. And that's one thing that we really work on, specific skill sets for that in WifeSavers. Lucretia, what about you on this list? What jumped out at you?
Mine's similar to Rosemary's, but from a different angle in terms of lack of understanding the differences between men and women. I don't know if this is politically correct, but I had a lot of influences in my life that said that men and women are basically the same, and I believed it. And that could be no further from the truth. That is just not correct. And I learned how differently men think and what their fears are compared to what my fears are. I mean, the skills and the know-how that I learned, you've helped me specifically be able to understand and not take behaviors that are part of his brain and his biology
Yeah.
personally. I mean, I would take it personally like it's me, and it isn't me. It just has to do with, him and my lack of skills in being able to communicate more effectively.
Yes, because understanding is key, obviously, but if you don't then know how to respond optimally, other than, okay, I get it now, but what am I supposed to do about it? It's a progression, and it's to our advantage to learn those things. And of course, then we have to do our part as a wife to sort through what is it about him that's gender influenced, and what is it about him that's environmentally influenced, and what is it about him that is nurture influenced by his past and the way he was raised, for instance, and what is it about him that we're actually influencing. That's quite a pot of a potpourri of things that we have to sort through, and that means that requires the development of our understanding, our emotional intelligence for sure, as well as our relational intelligence and our intuition. That's really what it adds up to, is our intuition as a wife, so that we can think on our feet in any given moment, the optimal way of handling a situation and responding and continuing to build that castle brick by brick.